So this is day 1 and race 3 of this year's Sonata National Championships. This year it was held on the River Medway, so we jumped on our friend Steve's boat and anchored herself right in the middle of the course so we could see what was going on. The Sonata was designed in the 70s by David Thomas. It was designed to be just a small cruiser racer, and they built loads of them. Now, I wasn't sailing back then, so I've no idea what the class was like, but what I can tell you is that now, in 2024, if you want competitive one-design cruiser racing on a budget, you really can't do much better than the Sonata. You can buy them for just a couple of £1,000s. A good racing one won't cost you much more than £5, and as you'll see from this film, they really do have some cracking racing. This year, there were 22 boats that had entered these nationals, and only 9 of those were locals, which also tells you a lot about the strength of the fleet with that many people willing to travel. But I bet, after today's sailing, none of them begrudged the distance they had to drive, because you often hear the term champagne sailing spouted about, but really, you could not have got a better day's sailing this on the River Medway. They had an incoming tide with the wind from the east, which meant it was a beat against the tide and a run back with it. But the race officer had sensibly set this course up between buoys 19 and 15, where there's a large expanse of mud that does a reasonable job of equalising the tide across a large part of the river. So okay, they had the added obstruction of our boat anchored in the middle of it, but he gave everyone the chance to find some clear air and work on their boat speed. That said, although it was hard to follow the race from where we're sitting, the leaders were really the first people to get over to our side of the river and start working along the shore here. I don't think any of those that sat out in the tide made any great inroads into the fleet, even if they managed to hang on to their positions. But if you were one of those taking part and know differently, let us know in the comments. Windward Mark for the first time's always an exciting place to be. Unfortunately, our little drone really doesn't have the range or battery power to get to all the right places, so we're looking at this from quite a way away. But the question as always is, do you want to come into the mark on starboard where you've got rights, or do you want to come into the mark on port where it's easier to pick a ley line? Now where this Windward Mark was placed, you had the added complication of the tide. If you're one of the boats coming in on starboard, how much do you allow for the tide to push you back? Keep an eye on the gaggle of the boats that are coming into the mark now. As you can see, I think a few of them cut it a bit fine. Gone aground over there. It's got off again. boat. And that's second to fourth. Actually second to fifth.
So finally, if you got this far in the film, I figure you're probably one of those that took part. So if you want to see the sort of unedited clips of race 2, there'll be a link in the description below.